Have you ever wondered why it feels like your gut isn't healing? Do you feel like you've looked into everything to heal your gut, but nothing has worked? If you've been racking your brain trying to figure out what you could possibly have missed in healing your gut, then I have the perfect free webinar for you, The Gut Mold Connection: How to Heal Your Gut from the Inside Out. On Friday, January 24th, come and learn from me and mold expert Matt Kelly on why your gut isn't healing, what mold has to do with your gut, and how you can heal your gut the fastest possible from mold and other co-infections. Joining is free, but spots are limited to the first 100 attendees. To save your spot, go to betterbellytherapies.com/gut-mold to register now, or click the link in the show notes. And if you can't attend live, no worries. When you register, you automatically get signed up to receive the replay, but only if you register. So go to betterbellytherapies.com/gut-mold or click the link in the show notes and get ready to join us and learn about your gut and mold connection so you can finally heal your gut for good. Last fall, I did a 7-part series on the 7 pathogens I see most often causing my clients chronic symptoms. And within weeks of finishing that series, I got an email from someone asking if I had an episode on Epstein Barr Virus. And I did not. So to rectify the situation, today I am tagging on part 8 to our Pathogen Series, which is the Epstein Barr Virus episode. On today's episode, I'm going to go over what Epstein Barr Virus is, where EBV is in the body, common Epstein Barr Virus symptoms, should you get Epstein Barr Virus testing, why Epstein Barr Virus treatments fail, what EBV treatments you can do instead to not fail, and what you must consider if you think you have an Epstein Barr Virus reactivation. If you think you have or know you have EBV, or you have chronic symptoms that just don't go away no matter what you do, then this episode is for you. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly Podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns, literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. Okay, guys, so real quick, before we get started on the content for today's episode, please know that on today's episode, I'm going to be referring honestly a lot to the 7 Pathogen series that I did last fall. And those are going to be episodes 233 through 239. And you're going to learn why I'm going to be referencing them so much. But I do have the links in the show notes. And if you are considering or know you have Epstein Barr virus, please know that do not just listen to this episode. You must understand, or at least ideally be exposed to, all other 7 pathogens that are highly, highly involved in chronic illness that I'm seeing in my clients to even have a chance of healing from EBV. And I'm going to explain why that is later in this episode, but I just want to get your brains going right now to check the show notes, get access to episodes 233 through 239. It's going to cover H. pylori, Candida, SIBO, parasites, C. diff, mold, and Lyme. And just know that if you get all those things down, if that's the one thing you take away is you understand you need to be looking at other pathogens when EBV is involved, then this episode has succeeded. But that we are going to get to that in just a second, because I want to just start off this episode with talking about Epstein Barr virus symptoms. What are symptoms you're going to see if you have Epstein Barr virus activated in your body? So common symptoms you're going to be thinking of are going to be fatigue, autoimmune conditions. And honestly, if we just stopped there, that would cover a lot. Epstein Barr virus is a virus, and viruses cannot live on their own. They must live inside of a host cell. They're kind of like incomplete little, they're not actually parasites, but they are parasitic in the concept of they must live off of something else. They can't duplicate their DNA on their own, and so they will take over a cell that has a way of duplicating DNA, and they will use that cell to replicate themselves and then eventually kill that cell. So when you have a virus or an infection inside of cells, that can be a huge trigger for autoimmunity because the body says, well, gee, these cells are being super malfunctioning or dysfunctional. Let's go and attack them. So again, huge issue that if you have any autoimmune condition, I do not care where it is in the body, could be Crohn's, could be ulcerative colitis. These are kind of GI symptoms or GI autoimmune conditions. This could be This could be Hashimoto's, Graves' disease. These are things on the thyroid. It does not matter where the autoimmune issue is. There is a high correlation with EBV, and we'll actually get a little bit more into that other than what I just shared. But so fatigue and autoimmunity, two big things, high estrogen and then low testosterone. This is because Epstein-Barr virus increases something called aromatization of testosterone, which is something, it's a pathway in the body where testosterone can get converted into estrogen. And this pathway gets used a little bit in everybody, but when there's high amounts of inflammation in the body, then you get this increased likelihood, both for men and for women, that testosterone will actually be pulled out of its own detoxification and metabolization pathway and get converted into estrogen. And so what you would actually see on a lab with estrogen and testosterone is high estrogen and then low testosterone. And that can be a big sign that aromatization is likely going on. EBV, inflammation in general, can increase aromatization, but Epstein-Barr virus is a big component of driving that as well. So for example, one reason you might want to consider Epstein-Barr virus as potentially a part of your complex of health issues or root causes is if you know that you have high estrogen and low testosterone levels. Then next, you're going to be looking at estrogen dominant symptoms because of that high estrogen levels. Estrogen dominant symptoms, you can just Google it, but it's going to be things like PMS, irregular periods, heavy periods, tender breast, irritability, moodiness, things that come with high estrogen. Sore muscles and joints, swollen lymph nodes, persistent flu-like symptoms, skin rashes, depression, liver dysfunction or congestion. So this could be everything from high liver enzymes to non-fatty or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. If you want to learn more about liver, like if you're like, wow, that's me, or you want to learn more about how the liver functions or what liver congestion even is, because you can have liver congestion without having a liver disease, go see episode 118 from my podcast. I have it linked in the show notes. It's titled Liver, the number one thing you can do to ease bloating and PMS. Other things Epstein-Barr virus can trigger are going to be sinus problems, asthma, shortness of breath, hormone imbalances in general, hypersensitivity to mosquito bites, eye floaters, and the mosquito bites is because of the immune dysregulation that is going on in the body as Epstein-Barr virus is activated. Eye floaters, low immune function, meaning you get sick often, GI infections, again, because there's so much immune dysregulation that the gut immune system is not working properly, and so you're going to have a lot of GI infections on top of that. Again, those GI infections might not be even caught by conventional medicine doctors or even holistic functional medicine doctors, but doesn't mean they're not there. Night sweats, go see my liver episode if you're like, I do sweat at night. I keep thinking it might be perimenopause. It actually could be your liver. It could be toxic burden, and that can incur night sweats. I describe that in episode 118 that I've linked in the show notes. Tinnitus, as a symptom, so ringing in the ears, and then vertigo, dizziness, and lastly, just kind of its own like addressing or focusing on this thyroid disorders. So it's going to be hypothyroid or hyper, either of them. And what's really interesting, there's actually been research that shows that 80% of Hashimoto's patients have Epstein Barr virus in their actual thyroid gland, and 65% of Graves' cases, which is hyperthyroidism, has Epstein Barr virus in their thyroid. So just like very interesting data there. And those are, again, specific autoimmune research, but it's even if you don't have Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, if you do have a autoimmune condition of some sort, EBV or Epstein-Barr virus can be a part of it. So next part of this, that I'm just following the pattern of what I talked about in my 7 pathogen series. The next thing we described is this a bacteria, a virus, or a yeast, or essentially yeast/fungus? This is a virus. It actually is in the name, so it's a little bit of a cheat. You probably are like, duh, Allison, but just as a reminder, viruses are different than bacteria, and they're different than parasites, and they're different than yeast. They can't live on their own. They have really, really short lifespans outside of having some type of host or thing that's keeping them alive because they can't replicate themselves. Their location that Epstein-Barr virus can be in your body is anywhere. And this is important to consider that a lot of other pathogens in the 7 pathogen series are gut-centric. Like H. pylori can really only be in the stomach. It likes high acidity environments. So there can be a lot of pathogens that in the 7 pathogen series are going to be causing symptoms that are GI, or they're going to be about killing things in the gastrointestinal tract, but Epstein-Barr virus is anywhere. It can inhabit any cell in the body. And so it's going to go find a cozy place to hang out and chill there inside of your cells. Where do you get Epstein-Barr virus? A lot of people call it the kissing disease, which we associate with mononucleosis is where, if you have it, common symptoms are just you're really tired, you got to sleep all the time. Often happens that people get mono, quote unquote, get mono when they're under extreme stress. For example, my mom had mono when she was in college and was going through all these different exams and stuff. So it's very common, people say, and then I got mono, when they're trying to get into college and they're doing the SAT and the ACT and studying and applying and holding a job down and finishing high school, or same thing in college, kind of doing exams and not sleeping enough and stressed. That's just a common time that you get mono under extreme circumstances. Or children might get mono because they just have smaller, more fragile immune systems. So kissing involves saliva. So in general, this is more about saliva or saliva-contaminated objects, toothbrushes, cups, anything like that. And then it can be sexually transmitted as well. Now, here's where things get interesting, and the whole rest of the episode, I think it's way more interesting if you've been bored by any means up until this point. What percentage of the population has Epstein-Barr virus? This is where your understanding, if you understand this and you understand every single logical conclusion I make after this, even if you have Epstein-Barr virus, you are going to have a massively higher likelihood of having a positive outcome and finding a practitioner who understands it too, because you're going to weed out the people who are basically throwing bad protocols at you. You will weed them out very easily once you understand how it works. So 90% of people are infected globally with Epstein-Barr virus. 90% are infected at some point in life. Now, some people think it's higher than that. Maybe it's like 95%. It kind of depends on what population testing that you're looking at. But it's kind of commonly accepted 90% of people have it. Like, for example, my sister developed Epstein-Barr or mono. So she had EBV in her body. Like, we knew she had it. She was diagnosed with mono, which is an acute infection, meaning the EBV is activated in the body. She had it when she was a kid. She is 3 years younger than me. She was very young when she had it. And the likelihood that she gave it to me somehow just through us being children and sharing cups and being in close proximity to one another or kissing each other on the cheeks or whatever, is super high. The likelihood that I have Epstein-Barr virus is just really high. Same for pretty much everybody else. The big difference is that many people can have it. Many of these people in the 90% category have it and never have symptoms, never develop symptoms of Epstein Barr virus, never get mono, never anything, right? So the big issue is that this then impacts, honestly, the rest of how we think about Epstein Barr virus testing. Like, if everybody has it, like, what does the testing actually tell us? That's a very interesting question. We're going to get into that when we talk about what testing I recommend. But in general, conventional medicine is going to acknowledge acute infection of Epstein-Barr virus, which is pretty much mono, but it will not, again, conventional medicine will not consider Epstein-Barr virus as potentially contributing to chronic long-term health struggles later in life. That's just not how they think. So reasons a doctor or functional professional might test you for Epstein-Barr virus or might think it's a part of your complex of root causes for your symptoms is if you have chronic illness, autoimmune condition, one or multiple, mold toxicity. We're going to get into this more in a little bit, but essentially anything that suppresses the immune system is going to set you up for an increased likelihood that Epstein-Barr virus, which if it's in your cells somewhere, can get activated at any moment, right? Let's say it's in my cells. I've never knowingly had an Epstein-Barr virus activation, but if it's in my cells and I go through some immune suppressing experience, that could be an extremely stressful part of life. That could be some type of other extreme illness, like maybe meningitis, mold toxicity. Unfortunately, mold is extremely immunosuppressive, and it can cause a lot of immune dysregulation and therefore cause an activation of Epstein-Barr virus. So if your doctor or functional professional knows you have mold toxicity or you guys are considering it, they might talk to you about Epstein-Barr virus. And in general, maybe they would test you if they just simply know Epstein-Barr virus like could be a part of your case. Reasons a practitioner might not test you for it is, number one, they're not even considering Epstein-Barr virus as a component of what you have going on. But really, I think, and that's going to be a lot of conventional medicine. But what I think is really interesting and what I want you to know is that I personally do not test or care about Epstein-Barr virus on a test until someone has lingering symptoms, even after we've addressed all other pathogens and toxins. And I say there are always other pathogens present if there's an Epstein-Barr virus activation present, unless it's like just an acute stressor issue, like, loss of a loved one, moving. There's kind of the big things that can cause mono, for example, could also simply, in terms of stress, cause an Epstein-Barr virus activation. But beyond like just psychological stressors, if there's an Epstein-Barr virus activation, it's going to be other pathogens in the body that are suppressing the immune system. And that's where the 7 pathogen series comes in. We're looking at H. pylori, Candida, C. diff, all these things. They're coming together and they're all aggravating each other and suppressing your immune system and then thriving, all of them, more because your immune system's down. And then Epstein-Barr virus flares and joins the party, right? And then you also can have toxins that would also really impact the immune system. Think heavy metals, parabens, phthalates. I'd say heavy metals are some of the biggest hitters that I've seen for my clients, but also mold exposure as its own toxin. Mycotoxins are the toxins that mold produces. So the mold itself is a pathogen, and then it also produces a toxin. Super not fun. So I don't test for Epstein-Barr virus because Epstein-Barr virus typically is reacting to the environment of your body. It could be a psychological environment, but often if it's chronic, psychological issues often should go away. Like psychological events that would cause EBV to flare will eventually go away typically. Maybe someone's going to make a case, Allison, I've had this psychological, meaning some, 5-year-long stressor. But most of the time you're going to have a psychological stressor that can only last for weeks or months at a time. That would really be on its own enough to activate EBV. Other than that, we're really looking at chronic hidden pathogens that are not Epstein-Barr virus and toxin exposure, toxic burden. So why test for EBV if really EBV is being enabled by other things stressing the body? EBV at the end of the day is almost a symptom. It's saying your body is too weak to handle this virus that normally should be dormant in your cells. Don't go and attack the EBV. You're too weak to get the EBV to go back in the cells and become dormant again. You need to attack the things that are suppressing your immune system, whether that's a psychological stressor or a pathogenic stressor or a toxic stressor, toxin stressor, or all three, right? If you deal with those three, typically Epstein Barr virus is going to go slink back into its cells, wherever it likes to hide and be dormant, and just be dormant. So again, that 90% of the population's having this virus just means it impacts the rest. And the fact that the virus is not activated unless the immune system is suppressed, then it really means at the end of the day, most treatments for EBV don't need to be about EBV. Treatments for EBV need to be about what is causing the immune system to be suppressed. But if you really want to do a test, there's lots of tests out there. I'm just going to tell you what I will use personally in my clinic. It is not, I'm not here to this is a good test, this is a bad test. It's not the discussion I prefer to have. It's not my favorite thing. You just need a test that works. So the test that works that I like to use is from Vibrant Wellness. It's called the Tick-Borne 2.0 panel. It comes with Lyme markers and then also Lyme co-infections like cytomegalovirus. And they can be co-infections, but it also includes Epstein Barr virus. So it's just this whole panel of a bunch of things. I personally, if I'm going to test somebody at all, I'm usually just going to use the Tick-Borne 1.0 panel because if Lyme is activated, Epstein Barr virus also will get activated commonly together because Lyme is similar to Epstein Barr virus where the pathogens that make up Lyme disease, for a healthy host, we are either going to kick them out or they will be dormant in your cells. So very, very similar case where Lyme and Epstein Barr virus, they're one of the last pathogens I will ever consider or even bother trying to do a specific protocol treatment on because so often they will become dormant and go into remission just by addressing all the other issues that enabled them to come out and play. So Epstein Barr virus, again, can be a co-infection of Lyme, meaning you got it from the tick bite. But again, most people are picking up Epstein Barr virus during your childhood. You're already carrying it in your tissues when you're bitten by a tick. And it's the kind of compilation of, or the accumulation of stressors in the body, toxins, pathogens, etc., that then enables Epstein Barr virus to come out and play. It's kind of like you already had it and now it's active. So here are signs of a bad protocol. If you're like, how do I know if someone's, gonna do a good job? Or how, maybe you say, I worked with someone who did an Epstein Barr virus protocol. How do I know if it was good or not? Basically, you don't want to target and treat Epstein Barr virus in isolation. Don't just do Epstein Barr virus. If someone's like, we're going to do an antibiotic, we're going to do an antiviral, we're going to do herbs, and it's just for the Epstein Barr virus, run away. You're going to waste your money because they have not actually found the true problem driving the Epstein Barr virus activation. They are just going straight to the problem, and that's not even, it's not the main problem. They're going straight to like shiny object syndrome. And it looks cool and you're like, whoa, I have EBV. This is, a lot of times it's impressive because if you are a sick patient and you're not in health, you're not a medical provider, or you don't understand Epstein Barr virus, you think, wow, this was so amazing that you thought of this. You really think outside the box and you just believe them. Do not believe them. Epstein Barr virus should not be treated first. There should always be both testing for other pathogens and toxins and the treatment of other pathogens and toxins prior to even thinking about working on Epstein Barr virus. So signs of a good protocol is that Epstein Barr virus is treated as a part of a bigger clinical investigation. So you're investigating H. pylori, candida, parasites, and really mold. Not everyone's going to have mold exposure, mold toxicity, who has an Epstein Barr virus activation going on, but I'd say majority of my clients do. Same with Lyme, meaning mold. If there's mold exposure, or if there's a Lyme activation, there's very, very, very frequently mold exposure going on. So at the end of the day, learn more about mold. Spend more time learning about mold and mold exposure than you do on Epstein Barr virus. The Epstein Barr virus becomes boring really fast when you realize it's not even the person driving the boat. It's just on the bus. We just went from boat to bus. I realize that now. But if you want to learn more about mold, you could start with episode 238, which is in the 7 Pathogen Series. Can mold make you sick? Symptoms of toxic mold and the best mold test to get. But that episode is also going to link to you a whole mold series I did back in, I think, like July, and there's like 8 episodes in it. And that whole series is also gold. So get ready to learn. You might not have wanted to learn about mold. It's a lot to learn about. I will just emotionally and psychologically prepare you for that, but you do not want to avoid it if you really think or know that Epstein Barr virus is a part of one of the issues you have. So other signs of a good protocol, you're going to have a bigger clinical investigation of toxins, heavy metals, H. pylori, parasites, mold, and you're going to test for those things. You're going to test for lots of things. And doesn't mean you have to test for everything under the sun. In my program, the Better Belly Blueprint, or when I work together one-to-one with clients as a VIP client, we always start off with evaluating what testing is most relevant based on your symptoms and health history, and also what other testing you already have. Like if you already have testing that you've done within a recent enough number of months, then we can just use that testing too. But what testing you have and haven't done, how recent it was, what your symptoms currently are, and some other bits of health history can help us determine what labs you need. Inside my program, the Better Belly Blueprint, I literally have dumped my brain onto a spreadsheet, and you have something called the Lab Chooser tool. You literally just answer questions by checking off boxes or not checking them, and then it spits out what labs you should order. Again, based on what labs you have or haven't done already, as well as how recently you did those labs and your symptoms. So you do lots of testing first. You never want to guess. Don't just be like, well, this looks like H. pylori. This looks like this food sensitivity. Do the test. Once you have the test, address all of those other pathogens first. And the pathogens the order I recommend you address pathogens in is literally the order of the 7 Pathogen Series. So H. pylori is first. I think Candida or parasites are second. You would think I would have it memorized by now, but I don't. Go and look in the show notes. You'll see the order of those episodes, and that's the order I recommend it. Don't forget that you also need to work in other issues like heavy metals and nutrient deficiencies, which I don't have in that series because they're not pathogens. But they are in my program, the Better Belly Blueprint, which is this holistic program to heal your entire body through the gut and get rid of pathogens and issues like everything from Lyme and EBV to mold to H. pylori and the symptoms are going to be across the board. They're going to be headaches, migraines, acid reflux, insomnia. I mean, the list could go on. So highly recommend that program. If you want to learn more about it, go to betterbellytherapies.com/training or click the link in the show notes that I have for it. And you can actually watch a video on exactly how the Better Belly Blueprint program works and why it works to help you get customized protocols for you without needing to pay for a practitioner like myself to build you a customized protocol. And then, of course, I can work with clients as VIP or one-to-one if you want me to do it for you. But all that being said, you're going to test first. Once you find out what you have and what's going on that's likely driving all of your immune suppression anyways, then you deal with those things. And then at the end, if you still have symptoms, and this happens, you still have symptoms, you want to see if Lyme's a component. If Lyme and EBV are components, they need fairly similar treatments. We're looking at herbal therapies, biofilm busters, liposomal herbal therapies, meaning the way that the herbal therapy is prepared is in a fat-soluble format. And this is really important because Lyme and Epstein Barr virus, because they like to hang out in cells, to really pull them out and start killing them and suppressing them, you actually need products, that is like supplements, that can penetrate cells. And cells are surrounded by a fatty membrane, the cell membrane. It's surrounded by fat. So you don't want to take a water-soluble herbal therapy. You want to take a fat-soluble herbal therapy. And the fancy word for that is liposomal. So I'm not getting into products that I like because this is not like a specific advice, like, here, take these things and you will get rid of your Epstein Barr virus. That's not the point of this episode. The point of the episode is how to find somebody who's going to do this right for you. And you can be asking them, like, do you use a liposomal version of herbal therapy when you have your Epstein Barr virus protocol? I do in my program, or when you worked with me one-to-one. Do you have a supplement or supplements that act as biofilm busters, meaning they break up biofilm, or this protective goo that pathogens put around themselves that literally cause antimicrobial herbs or even antibiotics to bounce off of them, and so they don't even get affected or impacted by the herbal therapy. So do you have biofilm busters? Do you have any nutrient protocols to replenish deficient nutrients, which you are always going to have when you have chronic illness involved? Do you look at detoxification and how to improve my detoxification pathways, particularly in the liver, before we even get to killing EBV or other pathogens? These are things you're going to be really wanting to look at. But when you do them in the right order, and when you're working with them correctly and for an appropriate amount of time, which can vary. Epstein Barr virus and Lyme disease, the amount of time to treat them can really vary based on the person. It can be based on how fast or slow your body can handle increasing your dose to a therapeutic level. It can be based on how long you've had that issue, how chronic it is in your cells, the strength and vitality of your body. So those things I can't actually say that there's not like if the protocol's 1 month, it's too short, but if it's 1 year, it's definitely long enough. It could need to be longer than 1 year in some cases. I have a client right now who's been on a Lyme protocol. And again, Lyme and EBV are super similar, so that's why I'm bringing that up. She's been on a protocol for over a year because she's had to increase the protocol very, very, very slowly, but her symptom relief is amazing. So that's just a whole other side story. So, but in general, I find that most of our clients that work with me one-to-one or through our program, the Better Belly Blueprint, their symptoms they never have to do an EBV or Lyme protocol because those go into remission when you deal with all the other toxins and pathogens in the body. So the order that you want to do this, just because this is on one of my things to say explicitly, if you didn't pick it up already, you want to do Epstein-Barr virus last. Do it last with Lyme disease after making sure you don't have mold or mold toxicity. And if you do have mold and mold toxicity, you're in a low mold exposure environment. That's something I walk people through inside of the Better Belly Blueprint. As well as you can just learn more about it through my mold episodes I have. I would really start with episode 238, which I mentioned and is linked in the show notes. And then that episode will link you to other episodes from my mold series, like 5 signs of hidden mold with mold inspector Brian Carr. So you can use your eyes to look around your house. It's not foolproof. It doesn't mean you don't have mold, but it is an interesting skill to learn those 5 signs of hidden mold. It's just an amazing series if you want to learn more about mold for free. But if you really just want to dive in and start getting the testing and getting the protocols and getting action steps in a 1, 2, 3 order, definitely highly recommend my program, the Better Belly Blueprint. And you can, if you want to learn more about it before joining, just go to betterbellytherapies.com/training. Or if you're ready to join now, just go to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint. So this is my Epstein Barr virus episode. I hope this was helpful. I hope that this saves some of you a lot of pain and agitation of potentially going to a doctor who's like, we're going to treat the Epstein Barr virus. And then you don't feel better after the treatment. And you're like, what just happened? I unfortunately heard about this happening to someone's family member recently. And it just broke my heart. They were talking to me and they're like, Allison, do you help with Epstein Barr virus? I'm like, yeah, why do you ask? And they're like, well, I think it was like a cousin or a niece or nephew, has been diagnosed with chronic Epstein Barr Virus activation and went through this protocol and he's not feeling better. And I'm like, oh no, it sounds like they didn't do any other testing or treatment for any other toxins or pathogens, right? Like, and they look at me confused, like, no, like, why would they do that? I'm like, well, they clearly are not thinking holistically about Epstein Barr Virus. So I hope you can avoid that and use the information from this episode to at least, if you don't work with me on this, don't join the program, but you can at least use it to interview and know if you're going to get some good results from working with another practitioner. So that's it for today's episode. I will see you guys next week. Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening. You can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of. And you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.